Now joined by TSN hockey insider Chris Johnston. Chris, Craig Berube says he's got a diagnosis for what ailed the Leafs in Game 5. My question for you is, does he have the cure?
Well, I'm not going to commit either way until we see Game 6, but certainly in Game 5 he did not have the answer. Craig Berube made changes to the lineup that didn't get to produce a desired result. He mentioned after the game that everyone needs to be better, himself included. And so I do think this sets up as an interesting sort of 40-hour window, quick turnaround heading into Game 6 about whether Berube can get more out of this team, get more out of a lot of players that have experienced the trauma of falling short in pretty spectacular ways as they did in Game 5 in these very moments over the years. And I think really this is where Craig Berube earns his money. This is what he was hired for a year ago. He took a team that was in last place once upon a time, the St. Louis Blues, all the way to winning a Stanley Cup final. They faced big moments and difficult moments, a double overtime in Game 7, being behind at times in that playoffs and won that Stanley Cup. Doesn't mean that he has a magic formula that can be taken from one place to another, but he's trying to find it here before Game 6.
So we heard from the first-year head coach today. We also heard from the longest-serving member of this team. What stood out to you about what Morgan Rielly had to say?
I think talking about the relationship between the fans and the team, because of how much time Morgan Rielly has spent as a Leaf. I mean, he's seen a sweater tossed on the ice before at Scotiabank Arena, although it's been quite some time before we saw it during that Game 5. And he mentioned how tough that was and how he understands how passionate the fan base is, that kind of relationship between team and the people that pay the tickets, the most expensive tickets in the league, basically. But he mentioned that as a player, all you can really be focused on is producing better results. I mean, clearly it's a chicken and an egg type of thing. I mean, you can't be worried about the fans. If you take care of the game will take care of itself. But that kind of stood out to me. And he was just talking generally about their need to be ready to compete a little better in Game 6. And what I read into that implied was that he did not like the level mentally that they were at entering what was such a huge game on home ice with a chance to take a 3-2 series lead. And so, Morgan is a pretty important guy around here, and it's not just on Craig Berube, it's on players like him to ensure a better result or a better effort in the next one.
The Leafs did not have a practice today. That's not unusual in the playoffs. You save your energy for the games. But we did see Anthony Stolarz back on the ice. But, Chris, he's not coming through the doors as the savior in Game 6.
Yeah, that's a tough one for the Leafs. I mean, look, he was the best option for them in goal all season long, one of the best goalies in terms of goals saved above expected throughout this season, and he's just not going to be available for Game 6. Don't know beyond that fact. It's sort of a day-to-day thing if you're looking for encouragement. On Thursday, he did a little bit more work than we saw him do prior to that in terms of being on ice with the Black Aces and going through something that looked like a practice. But for now, this is down to Joseph Woll. I suppose Matt Murray is sincerely in the mix. He did come into Game 5 after kind of a mercy pull on Woll. But, I do expect Woll will be the guy. And, look, if you look at this series, he's not quite kept pace with Sergei Bobrovsky. He's got an .877 save percentage. Bobrovsky's at .897 despite starting with 13 goals against in 3 games. And so, I do think that's an area the Leafs are looking to narrow the gap. They need Woll to be a little bit better as it's compared to the guy at the other end of the ice, because the two things are directly correlated, and the margin for error right now is 0.
After Game 5, it took a little longer than usual to get into the Leafs room. Apparently some frank discussion amongst the players. Today, defenseman Brandon Carlo kind of revealed what was said, and it's about shrinking your mind, focusing on the start of Game 6, the first 5 minutes, the first shift.